Good morning, good morning. We have another NTO meeting. It's September. And instead of entertainment today, we're having a police lieutenant come by and give a presentation on how to protect yourself, like safety tips and stuff. So I'm going to record today, and I'm going to, if I can talk to him, I'm going to ask for his permission. Hopefully I'll be able to I'm sure he'll be okay with it, but I want to ask just to be sure. But I'm sure he'll say yes, because this is something that will be beneficial for everyone, and I would like for y'all to be able to get these tips as well. So I'm really looking forward to it today. It's going to be really good. Let's take you along with us. Hey guys, the presentation is over. We're back home, and I wanted to preface the presentation with letting y'all know, as you can tell probably by the video length, is that it was a long presentation. The total video time was about 50 minutes, 50. I'm going to edit it down. There were some lull times. I had some video technical issues. So I'm going to edit it down as much as possible to keep the video length as short as possible. But I encourage you all to please watch this video in full, and please share this video. 2 reasons. One, to promote my channel, but first and above that, of course, is to benefit your family and friends, anyone you know, with regards to the subject matter. It may just help save their lives. And in the title, I'm going to be using, I won't be spelling it out with the actual letters because YouTube is sensitive about certain words, so I'll probably use different lettering and stuff, substitute, just to make sure I don't get like a copyright or anything like that, or a strike or anything. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the video.
Thank you all for the opportunity of allowing me to come out today. I'm Lieutenant J.K. Walker with the Dekalb County Police Dept. Just a little bit about me. I've had the opportunity to actually, I have to check with Bob. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when I actually came out and spoke to this group in regards to active shooter. But a little about me before we even get started is that I like to tell people all the time, you're talking to one of your own here. I was born and raised here in the state of Georgia. I know that we have some Bulldog fans that are in the room, but I tell people, I'm not a Georgia Bulldog, I'm a Georgia State fan. Yes, go Panthers. I actually went to school down the road here at Briar Lake Elementary, and I am a graduate from Shamrock High School, which now I know is George Newfield. I spent some time in the United States Marine Corps prior to joining the Dekalb County Police Department, and I've been with the CAP now for 23 years. So when I say it is an honor for me to be up here standing in front of you, and to be able to share this information, it definitely is. As we go throughout this presentation and talk and everything, there will be a time period afterwards if you all have any questions. I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. But one of the things that we talk about when we talk about active shooter in this presentation is that a lot of people look at it as, you know, don't really want to talk about it, this and that, but I tell people it's kind of like the vehicle insurance. This is one of those things that you want to have the information that just in case you find yourself faced with a situation, you know exactly what to do. And so that's the way that I approach this presentation. I'm going to provide you all with some information today, and I'm hoping that you take the information and not only, just use it for yourself, but also share it with other lovers. Because you never know the sharing of this information, how it may be an advantage to everyone that you come across. So with that being said, we're going to get started here. Next slide, please. We're going to get started here and pretty much in talking about active shooter and what actually is active shooter. While they're working that out, I will go ahead and start talking about some things. Some of you all may be very familiar with the active shooter program, and you may have actually received one in the past. There are two programs that are out there now that some of you all may or may not be familiar with. When active shooter first started, the education of active shooter first started, that was the Run Hot Fight program that was developed by the Department of Homeland Security. And some of you all may be very familiar with that. A couple of years ago, we saw a problem that was taking place across the nation in law enforcement. And that problem was a lot of us as first responders were being trained in different tactics of how to deal with active shooter events. For those of you all who are very familiar with DeKalb, you know that in DeKalb County we have a lot of different municipalities here in DeKalb County. You can literally go down the road here and you can be in another city, another police department, Brookhaven, Dunwoody. You have Lytonia, you have different police departments. Well, seeing that problem, what happened was the FBI and Texas State University actually developed a program to put all of us on the same page when it came to training for responding to active shooter event. In doing so, they also came up with a program to educate citizens of dealing with active shooter. That program is called PRACE, Civilian Response to Active Shooter Events. But in saying that, they came up with a different acronym other than Run Hot Fight. They came up with Avoid, Deny, Defend. And so this Avoid, Deny, Defend is an active shooter program that a lot of police departments across the nation are pushing out. And that's one that we do here with the Dekalb County Police Department. Next slide. So when we start talking about active shooter and then up here you see attack events. The reason why over the past couple of years I don't just talk about active shooter, but actually what they may say an active threat event, is because what we've learned is that sometimes when it comes to events as such, the weapon of choice sometimes always is not a gun. Sometimes there have been events in the past where they may have used a knife. Or there was an incident that took place not too many years ago, a person actually used a vehicle to attack a crowd of people. Yeah. And so when we start talking about these things, the reason why I bring that up is because as we go along, we're still going to be talking about active shooter, but the concepts that we're going to talk about actually can be utilized even if that attacker is not using a gun. If he or she is using a knife, if he or she is using a vehicle, you can still utilize the same concepts. The definition, though, of what an active shooter is that one or more people actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined or populated area. And as we can see over time period, sometimes this right here, this definition is looked upon anytime an incident occurs, and whether or not us in law enforcement will label something an active shooter event. And the reason why I say that is because this definition is very important to where if an incident occurs, whether or not it's actually labeled an active shooter event. Next slide, please. So when we start looking at the attacker, you can go ahead and quit. I think it maybe three things up here. When we start looking at the attacker, and in regards to an active shooter event, believe it or not, there is no set profile for who is or who will do an active shooter event. There's no profile given. One of the things, though, is that I have personally seen an increase in some of these active shooter events, is the increase in an avenger mindset. And what I mean by an avenger mindset is that someone who feels like number one, they may have been bullied, or someone who may have been let go from a job and feel like they're going to get back at those who may have fired them. So in essence, what they decide to do is that they're going to say, you know what, I am going to get back at those that did this to me. Hence an avenger mindset. One of the things that also sometimes an attacker may do is that he or she may broadcast their intentions of what they plan on doing. And when I say broadcast, that means that someone close to them, i.e. family member or friends, they may say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do something to kind of get back at them. I'm going to do something to get back at whomever may have done this to me. I kind of say this when I do this presentation. There's a movie that is out that to me kind of represents some of these things that we're going to talk about here today. I don't know if some of you all in here may have seen the latest DC comic movie, Joker. But Joker is a movie that, believe it or not, shows someone, and with some of the things that we're going to talk about here, kind of goes through those scales of, at the very end, he then is where he's committing violence, very violent acts. But it starts off at the beginning where he's not along that path. So there's several things happen to him along the way, and then he starts to go down that path of committing violence. Next slide, please. So when we start talking about risk factors, there are several risk factors involved with when we start talking about active shooter or active shooter. Number one, sometimes they're going to have a history of violence. A history of violence. So when we talk about a history of violence, it may be their upbringing. It may be their background. One of the things that sometimes, unfortunately, you're seeing, and in these presentations, I don't name any of the attackers that have done things in the past. But one of the things that became evident with the shooter in the Parkland shooting that took place at a high school is that they learned his family dynamics were a little different. There was a history of violence there in the background. And so sometimes that history of violence, whether it be from family or whether it be from other things, sometimes plays a factor in regards to the shooter. Exposure to violence. And believe it or not, the exposure to violence simply may not just be whether it may be from, like we're talking about the history of violence, may not be from where it may be family or anything like that. The exposure to violence, believe it or not, in today's time can actually come from something as simple as video games and the repetitive playing of them. One of the things that I have noticed in my profession is that a lot of kids have started playing video games so much, they are not able to separate the video game from reality because of that repeated exposure to the violence that they may be experiencing in those video games. Substance abuse and dependence. Again, this may be where a family member or themselves has, whether it be alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be, that may be something that affects. Mental illness and mental health, that's another factor. History of suicidal thoughts. Again, these are and it's just not one thing. It's just not one thing. It's a variance of things that sometimes contribute that they see as a background factor in regards to one that is an active shooter. Next slide, please. Stalking, harassing, and threatening behavior. Again, it's just not one thing. It's several factors. These are some of the things that they have seen that a person may stalk, harass, may even show threatening behavior to others that are around them prior to an attack. A negative family dynamic and support system. This is one of the things that they've seen from some of the shooters in the past, is that they happen to have a lack of support system. There's possibly no one there at home for them to speak with. There's no one there for them to turn to when they are encountering problems or things like that. So there's a negative family dynamic support system. Isolation or instability. They're isolated. They're to themselves. And I would say one of the things also that sometimes is of a great concern is that when a person starts to spend a lot of time by themselves, they start spending a lot of time by themselves. They don't want to go talk to others. They just want to isolate. And especially, with kids, if all they want to do is play video games, they don't want to interact with other people, again, it just starts developing that hard time of developing a separate sense of reality and video game. Others are concerned. And this is, believe it or not, this is where, I tell people all the time, this is where the general public comes into concern, to be able to help us in law enforcement by saying, hey, you know what, something is not right. They're experiencing something's not right, this person needs to get some help. This last one right here is definitely where we see a lot of times people able to step in and able to help out that person that may be exhibiting some of these risk factors. Next one, please. So there is a book that is out, and you can There's a book that is out by Amanda Ripley. It talks about the unthinkable. Who survives when disaster strikes and why? And one of the things that it explores in this book is, again, if people were faced with disaster, how is it that some survived it and some did not? How did some survive and how did some did not survive that disaster? So when they looked at, in this book, what it explores are several things. And we're going to kind of look at that in regards to those several things. Next slide, please. There are three stages of a disaster response. I know this month is September, and I know next month we have October. A lot of people sometimes love the Halloween season. One of the things about the Halloween season is that I always like when Geico puts that commercial out there. I don't know if you all have seen it or not. It's a scene where some people are running. They kind of run through the woods and they run into a shed and they're trying to run from this guy that has a chainsaw and a couple other things. And then somebody in the group says, hey, let's get in the car. And they all look at the person with the logical sense of saying, let's get in the car, like they're crazy, right? I bring that up because in the scary movies, sometimes we see how people go through these stages right here that we want to talk about. Sometimes there's a denial. And in scary movies, you always see that. There's that one person that's denying everything that's going on, but everybody else is like, nah, I think we probably need to be doing something. And there's that one person that's kind of stuck on, no, I didn't hear anything, or we need to just stay put. Deliberation. Deliberation is pretty much when a person starts deciding that, hey, possibly something is happening, and we probably need to do something. The decisive moment is when you put into whatever you have decided to do, when you decide to put it into action. When you decide to put it into action. And we're going to look at here, what are those things that you can put into action? Next slide. So this is a funny thing that talks about denial is the first stage of, and it says, no, it isn't. Okay? No, it isn't. But denial is definitely the first stage of what we're looking at here. Next slide. Deliberation. So when we start talking about deliberation, there are three things that take place then. Fight, flight, or freeze. Some of us have heard that before. And some of us have actually seen that in action. That when something takes place, people are going to do one of three things. They're either going to fight, which means they're going to take action and get involved. They may flight, which means they may take away, or they may freeze, which means they stand in a moment. And again, going back to the scary movies, we have seen how sometimes that takes place in scary movies. Well, the thing is that when we look at deliberation, believe it or not, there is one thing up here that we never need to do. And which one is that? Freeze. We never need to freeze. We never need to freeze. Believe it or not, freezing is again, going back to the book, The Unthinkable, freezing is what contributes sometimes to people not being able to respond to an incident in enough time. In enough time, okay? So we don't need to freeze. So you can go to the next slide. So how do we prevent ourselves from freezing? Well, one of the ways of preventing ourselves from freezing is by script or practice. And what I mean by that is that most of us, we don't have to think about certain things because we automatically do it. Just like when you all came in today, and especially if you come here frequently every month, you exactly know the layout of the land, so you know which door you're going to come in. That's not something that you may have to think about. Some of us, when we get ready to leave here, we may not have to think about, hey, how to stick a key into it initially, because we've done it so many times before. We practiced that script. When we start talking about deliberation, the way that we prevent from freezing is by practicing the what ifs. If I am involved in something, I am prepared to do X, Y, Z, or this, or this. If I happen to, encounter such and such situation, I'm prepared to do this. How many of us actually practice when we go into new locations, finding where there may be a second or third exit? If not, that is something that, again, this goes back to the deliberation, the script. Goes back to our script and practice. The reason why I say that is because, say for instance, if we go into a new location, we only know one way in, one way out, and something happens, and we're looking for our way out, but whatever happened took place at the entrance. where we need to exit. That's going to delay our time of being able to get out. And so if we already are practicing or scripting, where, hey, anytime I go into a new location, I want to make sure I find out where there's a second exit. Because just like in the setting here, we always know in restaurants, we always know where there's always a second exit, right? Where's that second exit in restaurants?
Out the kitchen.
Through the kitchen. That's something that's always known, right? So again, that's something that we don't have to practice or we don't rehearse. But deliberation, it prevents us from staying frozen and being able to do that flight or fight part, depending on what's going on. Next slide, please. So when we start talking about deliberation, so what are our choices? What are our options? We have avoid, we have deny, and then we have defend. These are our options, and as you can see up here, they're the same as if you're familiar with run, hot, fight. They're the same as the run, hot, fight concept. The same as it. So, and we're gonna, there's a video that we'll show you all here in a few that's gonna kind of break down exactly what is it talking about when we say avoid? What is it talking about when we say deny? And what is it talking about when we talk about defend? Because the thing is that if we practice, if we script something, and we are faced with the situation, well, these are our options that we have to be able to deal with that incident, so that we don't freeze, so that we end up surviving that incident and we know exactly what to do. Sorry.
There's a gunman inside the store. We need help now.
What's going to be the solution by the time?
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Actually, thank you. He's got no. Let's have a truck. I don't know if your daughter will be interested.
We need help. There's a gunman inside the store. He's shooting the place up. We need help now.
Issues that was found. Okay, let me see that. See what's going on.
There you go. Okay, give a second for that. It's gotta be on the screen. Look, thanks, go on. No, look. Run. To the right. We're rolling down. Come on, this way. Oh, no, come back. Yeah, in here. The government's coming. What are you gonna do? We're gonna have to defend ourselves. You're gonna see your daughter tonight, okay? We are all going to go home tonight, all right? We have a right to defend ourselves. Get the gun!
If you ever have the misfortune to be in an active shooter event, you deserve to survive. In our research, we have found that the actions that potential victims take during these events are critical to their survival. We have identified 3 options that have proven effective in many cases. These are: avoid the attacker, deny the attacker access to your area, defend yourself. It is a personal decision, but you have a right to do so. Avoiding the attacker starts with being aware of your surroundings at all times and knowing what is going on around you. If you see or hear something that looks suspicious, take action. For example, the stalker took immediate and effective action to protect himself when he observed the shooter pulling out weapons from the bag. Others, however, hesitated, and this hesitation can cost them valuable time that they could use to get away from the threat. If you hear something that is, or could be, gunfire, start trying to get away from it as soon as possible. Gunfire has a distinctive sound. Inside of buildings, the sound can be muffled or distorted. A single loud bang could be a person dropping something, or even thunder. But repeated loud bangs are much more likely to be gunfire. Additionally, look at the reaction of others. Are they startled or scared? Are they running? What are they saying? Any one of these events individually may create denial, but when put together, should create a heightened awareness and stimulate an immediate response. It is important that you know how to get out. The situation will be chaotic and rapidly changing. In general, you will want to go to the nearest exit. But you must also understand that the closest exit may not be accessible or safe to use. If this is the case, go to a different exit. While avoiding the threat, consider the uses of cover and concealment. Cover offers protection from gunfire, while concealment minimizes your exposure to the attacker. Try to keep objects between you and the attacker. If you can't avoid the attacker, sometimes the best option will be to deny the attacker access to your location. In many locations, this can be accomplished by closing and locking a door, such as they did in the meeting room. Locking the door has proven effective in many attacks. If the door does not have a lock, you can place heavy objects in front of it. Remember, barricades work best if the door opens toward you. If it doesn't, use things that are readily available, such as straps, belts, or objects that can be used to block or secure the door to make it difficult for the attacker to enter the room. This may at least slow the attacker down and give you time to identify alternate means of escape, such as adjoining rooms or windows. When attempting to deny access to your location, you want to make it appear that there is no one in your area. Lock doors, turn off the lights, silence your phones, and get out of sight. Your attempt to deny the attacker access to your location might fail.
The gunman's coming. What are we going to do? We're going to have to defend ourselves.
Have a backup plan about what you will do. In many cases, this may be to defend yourself. You need to be in a place where you can act if the attacker comes into your location. In most rooms, you will line up against the same wall that the door is on, near the door so you can react, but not directly in front of it. If you are unable to avoid or deny, your best option may be to defend yourself by using whatever is available. In a situation where someone is attempting to kill you, you have the legal right to defend yourself. Attack weak spots such as eyes, throat, and groin. Fight to the best of your ability and do not quit until the attacker is stopped. This is what the workers in the warehouse did when they were unable to avoid the attacker and felt their lives were in immediate danger. Whatever option you choose, call 911 as soon as you are in a safe location. Provide any information that you know. The operator will ask you a lot of questions. If you don't know the answer, don't guess. Just say you don't know and only state the facts. This will be a complex situation, and we can't tell you what you should do in every case. What we can do is provide you with information about the options that we have found to be most effective for surviving these attacks. The ultimate choice is yours. What you do matters. Avoid the attacker. Deny access to your location. Defend yourself. Law enforcement will be entering a chaotic scene with limited information. Their first priority will be to stop the threat to your safety. The police may not know where or who the threat is. Listen and comply with their commands immediately.
Put it down, sir, put it down. Both of you on the ground.
Police are trained to look at people's hands to assess threats. Do not have anything in your hands that could be perceived as a weapon, such as a cell phone.
Show me your hands, sir. Show me your hands. Move to us. Everybody, keep your hands up, please. Walk out the door.
If told to do so, stay where you are and do not make sudden movements. Again, follow all commands. Remember, what you do matters. Avoid the attacker. Deny access to your location. Defend yourself. Remember, ADD. You can survive.
All right, so just so that you all know, just in case if you all are wanting to find something out about this video is on YouTube. If you all are familiar with YouTube, all you have to do is put in Avoid, Deny, Defend, and the video is out there on YouTube for you to be able to view at a later date and everything. I just kind of want to piggyback real quickly. We don't have a couple more slides, but just want to piggyback on one of the things that was said in the video about police priorities. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because a lot of people may think that when we come in the door that we're going to immediately start assisting those who may be injured or those who need assistance. Believe it or not, when we come in the door in an active shooter event, our only priority at that time is dealing with the threat. The reason being is that our counterparts, the fire, EMS, they can't come in and provide the assistance that is needed until we come in and deal with that threat, that ongoing threat at that time. So our immediate concern when we arrive on scene is dealing with the threat. Secondly, is being able to secure the incident location. And when I talk about secure the incident location, what I'm really talking about is we've got to make sure that entire incident, or if it's a building, that entire building is safe to bring fire and EMS in so they can treat those that need to be treated. One of the things I can tell you myself is that we are changing training on our end to be able to immediately provide assistance to those that are injured in these kind of incidents. But please know, depending on how big that building may be, something like this, that second part, it may take us anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to secure a building, especially if it's a very large building, because we got to go through and make sure there are no other threats in there to not only those that are involved, but also again to our fire and EMS counterparts. Lastly is providing aid to the injured. And this is where those that are injured can then start receiving the treatment and the attention that they need. Next slide. These are some things that were mentioned in the video, and again, just going through them very quickly. Some things that they spoke about, and just kind of like to go back through. Remain calm, follow the officer's instructions, put down any items in your hands, such as bags or jackets. Immediately raise hands or fingers, spread your fingers, keep hands visible at all times. Avoid quick movement towards officers, such as attempting to hold on to them for safety. Avoid pointing, screaming, or yelling. Do not stop to ask officers for directions. Go back, please. Don't stop to ask for help and directions when evacuating. That last line is important because believe it or not, sometimes when we are responding to an incident location, sometimes officers may never have been to that location before. The only entrance and exit that we may know is the way that we're coming in. And again, if we are addressing that threat, that's what our mind is going to be up on. So we always say, if you have officers telling you, you need to go this way, please, you need to go that way. Because again, we're going into a very chaotic situation. And so whichever way that we're telling you to go, that's the direction that we will need you to go. Next slide. Information to provide the 911 operator. If you happen to call the 911 operator, some of the things that you want to provide is number one, the location of the shooter. Where is he or she located? That's going to help us as we're responding to that location. Number of shooters. This is definitely going to help us because sometimes, believe it or not, because of the confusion of information that comes in some incidents we found out we actually had 2 or 3 individuals. But with the way the information came in, it seemed as if it was only one. So if you're able to provide as much information about that incident as you can, it greatly helps us when we respond, especially when you start providing a physical description of the shooter. That greatly helps us. Number and type of weapons held by the shooter. Number of potential victims at the location is another important thing. When we are going through and we are looking for that threat, and once we are securing an incident location, fire and EMS is staged somewhere nearby. They're waiting for us to give them the all clear. If someone is able to tell the 911 operator that, hey, we have 5 or 6 individuals that are injured, that EMS and fire that are staged nearby, they now know once we give them the all clear, how many people they're going to possibly be treated. So that information is very important. Are able to provide 911 with that information. Next slide. Some active shooter presentation resources that I'd like to put up. Some of you all may or may not be familiar with this. This is a program that came out a couple of years ago, and this is actually a program that was developed from the conflicts that we were in, that our military were in. What they found out is that, especially since the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts, is that soldiers, Marines, sailors were surviving these conflicts from the application of one thing, and that was tourniquets. They were surviving, the increased rate had survived from them being in these conflicts versus previous wars because of the application of tourniquets. So the thought was, well, hey, maybe we need to bring this to the U.S. and push this to civilians. Some of you all may or may not know, believe it or not, a couple of years ago, here in the state of Georgia, every public school now has what they call Stop the Bleed kits. The little kits that you see over on your right. These are kits that house tourniquets. They house things such as gauzes, everything that you would need in a medical emergency. School nurses now are trained on this. There are now the large kit that you see at the very top. Even in our public safety building, they have these on every floor, Stop the Bleed kits. And so Stop the Bleed kits are kits that are able to be utilized at schools, churches, businesses, wherever it may be. Because again, I told you all, sometimes if we have a critical incident, it may take us a little while to get to those that are injured. If Stop the Bleed kits are throughout the facility or wherever it may be, this is a way that citizens are able to go ahead and start treatment and increase one's chances of being able to survive the incident. Now, Stop the Bleed training is not that difficult at all. My daughter is 16 now, but back when she was 12, we actually as a family partook in the Stop the Bleed training. It's like an hour and a half. And if you go to Stop the Bleed website, like stopthebleed.org, they will show you where there is Stop the Bleed training around the state of Georgia. Most of it is free, and it's an hour and a half. She was 12 at the time, my daughter was, and she understood everything they spoke about in that class and was able to even do some of the exercises that they had at the end. But Stop the Bleed is a great program to partake in. Next slide. The other thing that I like to talk about is that cell phones is something that all of us have. And believe it or not, when it comes to reporting something that's suspicious, when it comes to seeing something that may not be favorable, a lot of times the question is, well, I didn't want to call the police, didn't want to tie up the 911 line, but I wanted to make someone aware of what I saw, of what was going on. And this is, you know, I know we have some people who may not be a resident of DeKalb that are in here. So sometimes you may be like, well, I didn't know who to call. I didn't want to call 911. Believe it or not, in the state of Georgia for the past several years, we have been one of the several states that has had this app, which is free. And it is the See Something, Send Something app. The way that this app works is that, say for instance, you're out and about and you see something that is of a suspicious nature. Through this app, you can take a picture, hit send, and this information that you send with that picture is going to go to the GBI watch desk, okay? What the GBI watch desk will do is that they will take that information and they will say, you know what, this needs to go to the DeKalb Police. And then they will send it to that police department or wherever it is that it needs to go within the state of Georgia so that they can deal with that incident. So this is another way, and I know that some of you all are familiar with See Something, Say Something. This is another way to be able to piggyback on the See Something, Say Something with the See Something, Send Something app. And again, it is free. It's available on Android and iPhone devices. You can download it, and then you can utilize it. And if you see something that, some suspicious activity, behavior, whatever it may be, you're able to send this in and still report it to the police if you're concerned about not wanting to dial 911. Next slide. For those that are interested in FEMA courses of study, and you may help out with safety, whether it be, you know, at a church or a workplace or whatever, these are some classes right here that, again, that are free on FEMA's website. You're able to go and partake in these classes, and they provide great information and resources for how you can deal with emergencies and deal with disasters and everything. I'm going to leave this up here because I know there are some of you all that are writing this information down.